Hi, I'm Rod Saunders from Jew and Greek. Today I'm going to be responding to a video from 2019 where Todd Friel from the appropriately named Wretched channel made some comments about Francis Chan. Now, if you don't know, Francis was educated at John MacArthur's seminary as a Calvinist, but in recent years has had an epiphany regarding the gifts of the Spirit and now identifies as a charismatic, much to the dismay of the Reformed crowd. As a result, he has started rethinking other theological issues that he used to be so sure of, like church unity or ecumenism. So in this first clip, Todd offers an example of what he considers to be legitimate ecumenism.
The Q&A from the Ligonier Conference. Steve Lawson, Believer's Baptism guy, sitting with a bunch of Paedo-Baptists. That's ecumenism.
So he says it's fine for a Calvinist who believes in believer's baptism or credo baptism to have fellowship with a Calvinist who believes in infant baptism or pedo baptism. Wow, how open-minded of him. But then he goes on to quote from 2 John about having fellowship with false teachers.
However, 2 John, you'll recall John, the disciple of love, speaking very clearly, do not have ecumenism with false teachers. Starting in verse 7 of 2 John, he warns, many deceivers have gone out into the world, and the issue is Christology. They don't profess Jesus rightly. That's an essential. Listen to what John warns. 2 John 10, if anyone comes to you and does not bring correct Christology, do not receive him into your house, nor even greet him. For he who greets him shares in his evil deeds. That is the clear warning against ecumenism.
John was addressing a form of Gnosticism known as docetism, which taught that Jesus was just some sort of apparition or spirit rather than a flesh and blood human being. Now, I don't know of any translation of 2 John 7 that uses the wording correct Christology. Most translations say something like confessing that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. Now you might think, well, that's essentially what John meant, but he appears to be reading it as though that's what John said, and it's not what John said. I think Todd just said it that way to try to bolster the point that he's about to make.
And that, I think, is the primary concern about one Francis Chan, stating, quote, I was warned to not come here, but I love Mike Bickle. I love this guy. I really love this guy. Recently, speaking at the Send Conference, having his picture taken with Benny Hinn, Todd White, hugging Todd White.
So he's saying that Francis shouldn't be associating with the likes of Mike Bickle, Todd White, and Benny Hinn. Now, whether you agree with those guys or not, none of them fit the concern expressed in 2 John. They all believe that Jesus is fully God and fully man, and they all affirm salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone. None of them teach anything remotely like Gnosticism or docetism, as John was addressing. But if you're thinking about leaving a comment to set Todd straight on that, you're out of luck. The comments are disabled on that video. He then goes on to discuss Francis' association with Roman Catholics.
And I will tell you, I don't know how to work through some of the differences. I'm not even sure what they all are.
Really?
But what I do know is that I can't say I have no need of you, but instead, I know I'm so much stronger when I'm united with them.
That's just troubling. Any believer, as much as you might love Francis Chan, you should hear that and go, wait, what? Francis? You're not familiar with what the Roman Catholic Church teaches? You don't know what the differences are or how to work through them? Here it is. Mark those which cause division contrary to that which you have learned and avoid them.
Now, whatever your opinions may be about Catholicism, they also believe that Jesus is fully God and fully man, which is often referred to in theological terminology as the hypostatic union. As for salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone, that, I guess, depends on how you interpret Vatican II, which I'm not about to take on. But the consensus in the evangelical world seems to be that Catholicism and Eastern Orthodox teaching say that good works are also necessary. But when you press most evangelicals, they end up saying essentially the same thing. In fact, here's a clip of John MacArthur saying exactly that.
One's final destiny, then, is not determined by what you say. It is determined by what you do. It is not about profession. It is about obedience.
So this is kind of a gray area based on the apparent conflict between Paul's teaching on grace and James's teaching on works. At any rate, Todd's concern seems to be more about the so-called New Apostolic Reformation, or NAR, than Catholicism.
Francis has been hobnobbing with the Bethel crowd, speaking at Bethel Church, speaking at IHOP. You don't want to be sharing a platform with somebody who's outside of orthodoxy. I have spoken in a number of different churches, and I am not on the same theological page as them on several issues. But that's not the same as going to speak with a bunch of heretics.
So Todd is referring to these people as heretics, even though they affirm all the essential doctrines of the faith. This is a major component of heretic hunting. You have to broaden the definition of heresy in order to justify condemning people you disagree with. What Francis has done instead is broaden the definition of the church to include people he formerly shunned as heretics, until he found out he had been misled about them. Once he met them in person, he realized that they were nothing like he had been told.
I just happened to be on a board for this ministry called World Impact for the inner city, caring for the inner city poor and getting good teaching them, get them education, but on the board was a guy named Jack Hayford. Another guy
which he's a favorite to many of us.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, Jack Hayford is one of the heroes to us.
When he heard what seminary I went to, literally is at lunch, hey, where'd you go to school? He literally dropped his fork. And he goes, and then we both just started laughing. And he's like, I go, look, I was apologizing to him because I expected him to get on. One time he taught Bible study for our board. And I expected him, I had a dream last night, and here's what the angel said. And
like no Bible, just all dreams.
Instead, he opens up the scriptures and starts going in the context of these passages. And I'm like, what in the world? He knows the Hebrew way better than I do. He's expositing the word and coupling it with this character of just everything I read about Christ. And it really changed my whole paradigm, and I had to apologize, like, I am sorry, I did not have this view of you, and took me on this road of speaking at all sorts of conferences for, Foursquare, different, Pentecostals, and I'm like, wow, what am I doing in all these circles? I really like them. And everything was, I was able to mesh in both of those worlds until I said yes to IHOP. And as we got to know each other, and it just became this beautiful time to where at the end, and I asked Mike, he's like, ask any question you have about anything you've ever heard about me. And I began asking, and he began answering and explaining why he didn't spend his life defending himself. And God told him not to do that. And my jaw is just dropping at the humility of this man, the biblical knowledge of this man, the faithfulness for so many years, that by the end of our time, I had to just publicly say, look, I don't care what you think. And I'm speaking to the people that had been following me for years and had written me off. Now I'm going, I love this man. And I just wanted to stand by him because I'm going, I misread him. I was told the wrong things about him, and I see who he is now, and I'm going to stand with him.
So there you go. Francis Chan does in fact associate with people that the discernment and reformed crowd reject as brothers in Christ because he inadvertently stumbled into their world and found out that they do in fact read and study the Bible. They do love God and pursue holiness, and he has actually learned things from them and benefited from their fellowship. He doesn't believe in sacrificing truth for unity, but neither does he believe in clinging to misconceptions about his brothers in Christ once he has discovered otherwise. We need to fight for the truth, but we also need to fight for unity. And I think that's a balance that we should all strive for. Thanks for watching, and be blessed.